Welcome to Downtown Sports. My name is Downtown Stephen Brown, and in today's video, the Maple Leafs' 2020-2021 roster is taking shape very quickly. And today they re-signed Pierre Engvall to a 2-year contract extension with an annual average value of $1.25 million. So to project the salary cap for the 2020-2021 season, I'm going to use this graphic from an old video of mine where I basically went back and looked at the percent at which the salary cap is increased year to year. And if it were to increase by the exact same percent, 2.5%, that it did last season, then the salary cap would be about $83.5 million next year. And then if we take a look at the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement of the NHL, this states that the minimum salary for next season is going to be $700,000. And that's important because the Leafs are going to need to find a couple of guys to fill out the fourth line, making league minimum next year. Up on the screen right now is Capfriendly's contract comparable tool, and this is my custom contract for Travis Dermott. It is a 3-year deal carrying a cap hit of $2.5 million. Now, it's a little bit subjective. You can offer him a 2-year contract, and you might be able to get him for a little bit less, or a 3-year contract, he might come at a little bit more, maybe $2.75 million or even $3 million. It's a little bit of a gamble, but it's in that range of $2.25 to $2.75 million in 2 to 3 years. Same sort of idea, but this is my custom contract offer to Jake Muzzin, and it is for $6.5 million and 4 seasons. And the Jake Muzzin contract extension specifically is very interesting to me because in my previous video, I talked about a list or an order of operations that the Maple Leafs need to be following before this year's trade deadline. And I listed making progress on a Jake Muzzin contract extension as the second most important thing they need to be focused on right now, with the most important being assessing the health of Morgan Rielly. Now, every UFA situation is unique in and of itself, so it's hard to predict. There's a lot of different variables that go into a contract extension, especially for someone with a family like Jake Muzzin. But I can't see Jake Muzzin getting anything more than Ryan McDonagh, and I certainly can't see him getting anything less than Tyler Myers. And as Elliot Friedman has already reported, term is the most important thing in this contract negotiation. Jake Muzzin probably trying to be closer to 5 or 6 years in a deal, and the Leafs probably trying to stay within 3 or 4 seasons. But the one thing that you have to remember is that the more years that this contract ends up being, the lower that annual average value has to be. And vice versa, of course. So coming back to the armchair GM, you can see that I have 3 custom contract offers off to the side on LTIR right now, so they're not going to count towards the cap hit. But as we slowly add them in, we're going to see how much space the Maple Leafs are going to have to work with for the remaining rest of their roster. And Ilya Mikheyev at $1.25 million for 2 seasons, because why not sign an identical contract to Pierre Engvall? Now that cap space is pretty tight with still 2 spots in the lineup remaining, but I do have 2 scratches on the bench, and I don't think the Maple Leafs are going to be able to have a 22 or a 23-man roster. They're more than likely only going to be able to carry 1 extra player on the bench at any given time. So, I mean, if you want to move Nick Patan in there as a placeholder for a guy who's going to be making around league minimum, the Maple Leafs got about $1 million to go out there and get themselves a 4th-line center. And this is, of course, under the assumption that none of Andreas Johnsson, Kasperi Kapanen, and Alexander Kerfoot are traded. Now, if one of these guys are traded, because the forward core is looking really, really stacked, and having Ilya Mikheyev or any of those 3 aforementioned guys on the 4th line, it's not too optimal. And Kasperi Kapanen is the most popular of the 3 guys that are always traded within Leafs fans. And then I moved up Vasily Kasila and Kenny Agostino as just placeholders for guys making near league minimum to play on the 4th line. And that gives you about $2.8 million to go out and potentially get back a defenseman, whether that be a UFA or in a trade or whatnot. But then it becomes a question of who do you subtract from that top 6? And that's not an exact hard $2.8 million. You can find haircuts within this lineup to maybe push it to $3.5 million for that defenseman. Maybe you get a defenseman with a little bit of salary retained in a trade. Now, I've seen some people flirt with the idea of trading Travis Dermott. And I mean, at that point, yeah, you have a little bit more cap space to go out there and get a higher quality defender. But if you're trading Kasperi Kapanen and Travis Dermott, I mean, those are 2 guys that are 23 years old. You better be getting a guy back around the same age, maybe 25, 26 years old. on a decent contract, and there just aren't a lot of those guys available. And I mean, if you don't believe me, here's a list of defensemen sorted by points this season that are between the ages of 24 and 27. And I mean, there's not very many options on this list that are not named Rasmus Ristolainen, and nobody is there for that. Some of you might not like it, but I mean, hey, another year of progression for Travis Dermott, another year for Rasmus Sandin and Timothy Liljegren. Might not be too bad. Like I said in a couple of videos ago, let me pull it up again. It's a very unsexy idea that I'm floating out here to not make a trade for a defenseman. The sexy idea is to go out there and to get this mystery player that holds all these, ooh my god, he's going to answer all of our hopes and dreams. But let me know what your thoughts and opinions are, because I don't think that there's a team in the NHL right now with as many contracts already signed for next season. And that's something that I really love about Dubas, because if you use your time wisely during the season, then the offseason is freed up to do other things, like make trades, do scouting, meet with free agents and whatnot, create elaborate presentations to lure people home, to fulfill their childhood dreams. And you know what? I could confidently say that Kyle Dubas is probably doing something right now to make this team better. Or he's watching wrestling. So make sure to like the video if you did like it, and subscribe for more, because more is always on the way. And guys, the Leafs are still making the playoffs this year.